sis.
So there's someone in the chat that says, why does God have so many different names? I don't know. Ask the Kabbalist. He has different titles. Why?
Names mean something. They mean authority.
Yeah.
They mean character.
All of the above. There's no definitive answer to that question without going into a pill pool.
All right.
Is that Courtney?
Yeah.
Hey, welcome. Wally, you've made a lot of appearances in my videos.
Also prestigious.
Well, you're not prestigious yet.
Oh,
soon.
Yeah.
And you're still white belt.
Oh, okay. I know where I stand. I have one for you. Okay. Alef Tav. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
What do you think of it?
The only reason they make this argument is because of Alpha and Omega. Alpha being the first letter of the Greek alphabet and Omega being the last. Aleph being the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Tav being the last. Now, honestly, Aleph and Tav, or Et, which is what it spells, is the most common word found in the Hebrew language. Not just the Torah. It's, what do you call it? I'm not good at English. It's what's called a preposition. It's used to introduce a direct object. It's hard to describe because English doesn't have such a word. But to assume or to teach that this means Jesus or JC anywhere you read it is quite silly. Now, this is a statement that's made to other Christians. I'm pretty sure that any knowledgeable Messianic would not make this argument when debating me or debating any other Orthodox Jew. I mean, I think one could say that in Tanakh alone, it must appear over 20,000 times.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
But anyways, the argument that's typically made by Messianics is that because it appears in the first chapter of Genesis, not just the first chapter, but the first verse, Bereshit bara Elokim et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz. And then also at the end of Revelation as Alpha and Omega, that this means that Jesus has made an appearance in the first chapter of the Bible and in the last chapter of their Bible. I mean, to think that that is in some way JC in every portion, I've never heard someone explain why. I don't know the argument there. It seems like they just went to the Torah and said, oh, here, look, well, JC's all over the place because he's the Aleph Tav. It sounds kind of an idea that's not thought out. I mean, something to say to seem smart in front of a Messianic audience. Like, oh, look at that. Yeah, I got something to throw to a secular Jew. What do you think it means?
I don't know.
And my answer is that it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I should make a short little video on it, but it's so pointless. I mean, such a mute point.
I don't know. I wouldn't say it's moot. I think it has, like, the Hebrew Bible has a lot of phenomena, things that we don't actually understand that God put there for a reason. I don't know. When I say God, I mean inspired whoever wrote it, right?
In other words, it's just that you guys just chose those two letters because of Alpha and Omega.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think a lot of things have a literal meaning, and then it's placed there and with mystery shrouding it, and it begs for a deeper understanding and a deeper interpretation, or at least asking the question just to talk about it. Like, not that you'll ever figure it out, but, you know, for the glory of...
But I've never heard anyone explain it.
Other than the fact that it's a pointer in the language, that it points to the object.
Right,
yeah.
Right. For example, people like Michael Brown have a lot of intelligent arguments, typically based on rabbinic literature. They'll be like, well, this rabbi says this meant that. And this other rabbi said that this meant that. Now, like, if there was a rabbi that said that this meant Mashiach, then that's a premise. But just like a throwaway line, like, yeah, Aleph Tav, and this proves that JC's in the Torah, maybe that's what he meant, that on every page. That's kind of silly because it doesn't really mean anything.
Well, I mean, it just means, okay, so like in a reference to it would mean the beginning and the end. So like in a mystic way of understanding that, one could understand it that he is uncreated, or, I mean, uncreated like we are. So let me make sure I make that clear. Not like a Trinity type thing, but just that he is the firstborn of all creation. So he's the first and he's the last man, right? It's what they call the last man in regards to the resurrection. First man, Adam, last man became a living soul, so on and so forth. Anyway, but I mean, that could be a reference to what it means.
From the outset, it doesn't mean anything. It's an idea that was made up in the last 20 years. Michael Brown's never used it. Anyone who's reputable in the Messianic or Christian world has never used it in a debate because it's kind of silly. Why is that Jesus? You know, I don't get it. I notice many Messianics when they debate, they just start throwing things out of nowhere. And typically, the way you impress someone who doesn't know much about the Bible is just to say a lot. Say things he's never heard about to show that you're semi-informed.